She stood before 100 guests, champagne glass raised high toward the crystal chandeliers, and called me the loser who funded her dreams but never owned her heart. The room fell silent, caught between shock and awkward laughter. I didn't shout, didn't demand an explanation, didn't beg her to take it back. I simply reached into my jacket pocket with steady hands, placed a brass key on the white tablecloth beside her glass, left a sealed envelope next to her father's plate, and walked into the night without looking back, my footsteps echoing on marble. 10 minutes later, his voice shattered the celebration like a hammer through crystal. "Rose, tell me you didn't. Tell me you didn't do this to him." Before we dive deep into this story of betrayal, consequences, and ice-cold revenge, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hit that hype button to boost this episode and help it reach more people. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always genuinely curious where you're watching from around the world. Your engagement means everything. Now let's get into it. The chandeliers scattered gold light across marble floors polished to a mirror shine. 200 candles flickered among white orchids and ivory roses, their scent thick and sweet. Laughter mingled with the faint music of a string quartet. Everything looked perfect. Because I'd made it perfect. It was our 5th anniversary. I'd rented the city's most prestigious banquet hall, a restored 19th century palace. 200 guests filled the room, clients, family, friends, every person who mattered to us. The invitations were printed on handmade paper with gold leaf. The menu came from a Michelin-starred chef. The wine cost more than most people's rent. My name is Henry Castellan, 37. For 5 years, I thought Rose Whitmore was my forever. I met her at a charity gala, radiant in a midnight blue dress, speaking with passion about fashion and independence. I was drawn to her instantly. I built my business from nothing, a consulting firm that consumed my life, and when she told me her dream of opening a boutique, I funded it. $300,000. No questions, no contracts, no equity. Just love. The boutique thrived. She became a local celebrity. I gave her everything. A cliffside villa, a luxury car, trips abroad, every comfort she could imagine. Tonight was supposed to celebrate all that, our story, our love. Dinner went flawlessly. Friends toasted to our happiness, laughter, applause, champagne. The night shimmered with everything I'd worked for. Then Rose stood. She looked stunning in emerald silk, glowing under the lights. The room fell silent in admiration as she lifted her glass. "A toast," she said sweetly, "to the man who made all this possible, who paid for this beautiful night, who funded every dream I ever mentioned." Guests smiled, waiting for the sentimental ending. But who was never, not for one single day, my real love? The sound died instantly. The string quartet stopped mid-note. A fork hit a plate. Someone gasped. Rose's father stared in horror. Her mother went pale. Her best friend looked frozen. I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't give her the scene she wanted. I just looked at her, at the woman I'd loved, the woman who had just turned me into a joke, and felt something deep inside me harden into quiet certainty. That was the moment I understood. Love can become cruelty's stage, and devotion its punchline. A few people tried to clap, uncertain whether this was some kind of inside joke they weren't privy to, some kind of playful roast that would turn sweet at the end. The sound was scattered, awkward, and died quickly when no one else joined in. Rose lowered her glass, still smiling, feeding off the attention, the shock, the visible discomfort of everyone around her. She seemed energized by it, empowered by having said something so outrageous, so publicly. She looked around the room, making eye contact with various guests, some kind of triumph playing across her features. She thought she'd won something tonight. She thought humiliating me publicly was her moment of victory, her declaration of independence, her way of establishing that she was not defined by my financial support, but was her own woman who'd simply used a convenient resource. She had no idea what was about to happen. She had no concept of what I'd put in motion 3 weeks ago, the moment I'd overheard her on the phone with someone named Marcus, a conversation where she'd laughed and said, "He's useful, I'll give him that. A walking ATM with emotional attachment." That conversation had changed everything, but I hadn't confronted her then, hadn't yelled or accused. I'd simply started planning, and tonight the plan reached its conclusion. When Rose made her cruel toast, I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or demand an apology. I simply sat still while 200 guests held their breath, waiting to see if I'd explode or crumble. Instead, I reached calmly into my jacket and pulled out a small burgundy velvet pouch. The room fell completely silent. I loosened the black silk cord and drew out a single brass key, old, polished, heavy. It glimmered under the candlelight as I placed it beside Rose's glass. The soft clink echoed across the hall. Rose's smile flickered. Her confidence cracked for half a second. She looked from the key to me, suddenly unsure. I leaned close, my tone steady, almost gentle. "You might want to check the safe tonight, Rose. Everything you need to understand what happens next is there." Then I stood, adjusted my cufflinks, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. No shouting, no anger. Just quiet footsteps on marble, echoing louder than any outburst could. I passed the silent tables, the stunned guests, the string quartet frozen mid-note. No one moved, no one spoke. 200 people just watched me leave. Outside, my car waited. I'd arranged it earlier. The valet opened the door, eyes wide with concern. "Keep the tip," I told him. "In 20 minutes, there'll be chaos. Just do your best." Then I drove away. Away from the applause, the humiliation, the performance, and as the lights of the city blurred through the windshield, I realized what I truly felt wasn't rage. It was relief. Back in the banquet hall, confusion rippled through the guests like a wave moving through still water, gaining momentum and energy with each passing second. People whispered frantically to each other, leaning close, their voices hushed but urgent. "What just happened? Did you hear what she said? Where's he going? Is this some kind of performance art? This is so awkward. Should we leave? What do we do?" The string quartet remained silent, the musicians exchanging glances, clearly unsure whether to resume playing or not. Rose stood frozen at the head table, the brass key glinting accusingly beside her glass in the candlelight, catching the light with each flicker. Her triumphant smile had faded, replaced by something more complicated. Confusion mixed with the first edges of concern. She looked around the room, seeming to register for the first time how badly her toast had landed, how completely the mood had shifted from celebration to disaster. Her father, Thomas, a distinguished man in his early 60s with silver hair perfectly styled, a reputation in business circles for being shrewd and occasionally ruthless, and a portfolio that included commercial real estate and private equity investments, had been sitting quietly throughout Rose's toast. His expression during her cruel words had been carefully neutral, though anyone who knew him well could have seen the tension in his jaw, the tightness around his eyes. Now he noticed something that made that tension increase exponentially. The velvet pouch. It wasn't empty. His hand reached for it, almost automatically, fingers finding the weight of folded paper still inside. His wife, Margaret, leaned closer, her hand on his arm, concern evident in her face. "Thomas, what is it?" Rose's younger sister, Claire, a 28-year-old who'd always seemed uncomfortable with Rose's relationship with me, though I'd never understood why, stopped mid-conversation with her date, sensing something was wrong with her father's body language. Thomas unfolded the note carefully. It was written on expensive cream-colored stationery with my company's letterhead embossed at the top, the same stationery I used for important client correspondence. My handwriting was clear and precise, each letter formed carefully. He began reading silently, his eyes moving across the lines. With each sentence, his face changed. The color drained slowly, like watching wine drain from a glass. His hands started to tremble. The paper shook visibly in his grip. His breathing became shallow, audible even over the ambient noise of whispered conversations. Rose's mother watched this transformation with growing alarm. She touched his arm more insistently. "Thomas? Thomas, what does it say? You're scaring me." He looked up, first at his wife, his eyes wide and horrified, then at Rose. When his eyes met his daughter's, they were filled with something I'd never seen in them before during all my interactions with this composed, controlled man. Fear, profound disappointment, and dawning horror at understanding what his daughter had done. His voice came out broken, fractured, barely above a whisper. But in the dead silence that had fallen over the hall as people noticed his reaction, everyone heard it. "Rose, tell me you didn't. Tell me you didn't do this to him." Rose's face went pale, not the elegant pale of powder and careful makeup, but the sick pale of blood draining away. Her hand moved to her throat. "Daddy, what are you talking about? What does it say?" Her voice was higher than usual, stress creeping in around the edges. Her father's hand shook more visibly now as he held up the note. His voice grew marginally stronger, but there was anguish in it, the sound of a man watching something terrible unfold. "Read it. Read what you've done. Read what you've brought on yourself." Rose snatched the paper from his hand with more force than necessary. The sudden movement made her champagne glass tip over, golden liquid spreading across the white tablecloth in a slowly expanding stain, soaking into the fabric, dripping onto the floor. Her eyes scanned the words on the page. With each line, more color drained from her face. Her free hand gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles went white. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. The note read, Dear Rose and Thomas, by the time you read this, several things will have already happened. By the time you finish reading, several more will be in motion. I've had 3 weeks to plan this carefully. I suggest you read every word. First, Rose, you should understand the true financial structure of your boutique. Every dollar that built Rose Atelier came from my personal accounts. Not some of it, not most of it, all of it. The initial investment of $300,000 that launched the first location, the operating capital, the renovation costs for both locations, the inventory purchases, every single order from every designer, the marketing budget, the payroll for your staff, the utilities, insurance, supplies, everything, all from my accounts. The boutique's bank accounts were opened under the business name, but I was the sole guarantor for every transaction. The lines of credit with vendors, the lease agreements, the insurance policies, all required my signature and my financial backing because you had neither the credit history nor the capital to secure them yourself. Tonight, at 6:47 p.m., exactly 13 minutes before you stood to give your toast, I made several phone calls and sent several emails. I withdrew my guarantees on every account. Every line of credit has been closed, every account has been frozen. The corporate cards will decline within the next 30 minutes. By the time you read this, your boutique manager has already received notices. Second, the lease on both boutique locations. They're in my name, Rose. You remember signing the documents, but if you'd read them carefully, you'd have noticed I was the named lessee. You were listed as the operator. I've terminated both leases effective immediately. The landlords were notified this morning via certified letter. You have 30 days to vacate both locations. The security deposits will not be returned. I'm forfeiting them to ensure a clean break. Third, the brand name Rose Atelier that you're so proud of, that you put on your business cards and marketing materials and social media. The trademark was filed and registered under my business entity, not yours. I own it. You cannot legally use it going forward without my explicit written permission, which I will never grant. If you try, I'll pursue legal action for trademark infringement. Fourth, the villa, our beautiful cliffside home with the ocean views you loved photographing for Instagram. The mortgage was in my name only. Your income wasn't sufficient to qualify as a co-borrower. I sold it 3 weeks ago. The closing happened yesterday afternoon. The new owners, a lovely retired couple from Seattle, take possession this coming Monday at noon. You have until Sunday evening at 8 p.m. to remove your personal belongings. I've arranged for a moving company to assist you if needed. My assistant has their contact information. Fifth, the car you drive. The luxury SUV, you said, made you feel confident. It was a gift for our 3rd anniversary, but the title remained in my name for insurance purposes. You'd had an accident the previous year that made adding you as the primary driver expensive. I've reported it as a loaned vehicle being returned. It will be collected from the villa driveway tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I've arranged for an Uber credit to be sent to your phone to ensure you have transportation. Sixth, and this one's important, Thomas, all joint accounts Rose and I shared have been closed. The funds have been transferred to new accounts in my name only. Rose has access only to her personal checking account, which currently contains approximately $3,400. Thomas, I'm sure you're wondering why I've involved you in this, why I've addressed this note to both of you. It's simple. You need to understand what your daughter has done. You need to see the full picture. For 5 years, I loved Rose completely. Not casually, not halfway, completely. I sacrificed my time working longer hours to fund her dreams. I sacrificed my energy coming home exhausted but still listening to her ideas, still attending her events, still supporting her goals. I sacrificed my money, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to build the life she wanted. I never asked for gratitude. I never kept score. I never threw expenses in her face during arguments. I did it because that's what love meant to me. Building something together, removing obstacles so your partner could flourish. Tonight, she called me a loser, in front of 200 people, at an event I planned and funded to celebrate our relationship. She mocked the love I gave her. She reduced 5 years of devotion to a punchline. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't scream or break things or threaten. I simply took back what was mine. Everything I've removed belonged to me legally. I've taken nothing that was truly hers. Thomas, I know you taught Rose to be independent and strong. I respected that about her. But independence built on someone else's money isn't independence. It's parasitism dressed up as empowerment. Strength funded entirely by another person's sacrifice isn't strength. It's exploitation. Rose, the key I left you opens our safe. Inside, you'll find copies of every document I've mentioned. Every withdrawal notice, every terminated agreement, every closed account statement. You'll also find all your personal jewelry, the pieces that belonged to your grandmother, your mother's wedding ring she gave you, everything with genuine sentimental value. I'm not a thief. I'm not cruel. but you'll notice that everything I purchased is gone. The jewelry I gave you is there. I don't take back gifts, but I've removed everything that belonged to me. Consider this my final gift to you, a lesson in consequences. You wanted everyone to know I was never your real love? Fine. Now everyone will know exactly what losing me costs. I wish you the best, Rose. I genuinely hope you find whatever you were really looking for, but you won't find it funded by my accounts anymore. Henry. The note slipped from Rose's fingers, fluttering down to land in the spreading champagne stain on the tablecloth. The expensive paper began absorbing the liquid, ink starting to blur at the edges. Rose's champagne glass had rolled off the table, shattering on the marble floor with a sharp crack that made several people jump. The room remained completely frozen. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. 200 people had become an audience to a private devastation. Then, like dominoes beginning to fall, the evening started to collapse in earnest. Rose's phone, sitting on the table beside her clutch purse, began to buzz. Once, twice. Then continuously, vibrating against the wood, the sound loud in the terrible silence. Her hand trembled as she reached for it, nearly dropping it twice before managing to unlock the screen. 37 missed calls in the past 6 minutes, 62 text messages. The notifications were still coming, the phone vibrating continuously in her palm like something alive and frantic. Her boutique manager, Jessica. Rose, emergency. The company card just declined for the cleaning service. They're threatening to sue for breach of contract. What's going on? Call me now. Her assistant, Priya. Urgent. Suppliers calling nonstop. They say all our accounts are closed. The shipment scheduled for tomorrow is canceled. They want payment in full immediately, or they're starting collection proceedings. What do I tell them? Her accountant, Richard Chen. Call me immediately. All business accounts showing zero balance and frozen status. Henry's name has been removed as guarantor on everything. We have no operating capital. This is a crisis. Her landlord for the main boutique location. Received lease termination notice via certified mail. You have 30 days to vacate per section 12.3 of the agreement. Please call to discuss. We need to schedule final walkthrough. Her landlord for the second location. Termination notice received. Security deposit forfeited per early termination clause. Vacate by December 6th. No exceptions. The messages kept coming, scrolling faster than she could read them. Around her, guests were beginning to whisper more openly now, phones coming out, people texting each other even though they were sitting at the same table, the gossip spreading like wildfire through dry brush. Her father stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, the sound making everyone in the vicinity flinch. I need to speak with Henry, right now. Where did he go? He was pulling out his own phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he searched for my contact information. But I was already gone from his reach. I'd blocked everyone in Rose's immediate circle, her parents, her sister, her closest friends, her business associates, at 6:30 p.m., half an hour before the party even started. He called my number. It rang once, then went to the generic voicemail message that meant he'd been blocked. Damn it. Thomas almost never cursed. His wife looked shocked. He tried my business number, blocked. My assistant's number, instructed not to accept calls from anyone associated with Rose, my business partner. David saw the call, looked at me earlier in the evening before I left, and let it go to voicemail. Thomas rushed toward the exit, Rose's mother close behind him, both of them trying to salvage something, anything, their designer clothes and jewelry suddenly seeming absurd against the backdrop of financial disaster. Rose stood alone at the head table, her moment of triumph turned to ashes in her mouth. Her emerald dress that had seemed so perfect now felt like a costume. Around her, the celebration she'd just poisoned was actively dying. The event coordinator, a professionally composed woman in her 40s who'd organized hundreds of high-end events, approached with visible nervousness. Ms. Rose, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but there's a problem with the payment for tonight's services. Rose looked at her without comprehension, her mind clearly still reeling from the note. What? The deposit that was paid last month. It was refunded this afternoon, and the final payment we were expecting before the end of the evening didn't process. We've tried 3 different cards on file, and all of them have been declined. Rose stared at her. What do you mean, declined? The coordinator shifted her weight, uncomfortable. I mean, they don't have sufficient funds, or the accounts have been closed. We need payment of $47,000 immediately, or we're required by our contract to end the event and begin teardown. The number hit Rose like a physical blow. $47,000. For one evening. An evening she'd insisted needed to be perfect, needed to be talked about, needed to be Instagram-worthy. I can't... Behind them, the string quartet stopped their attempted resumption of playing. The lead violinist approached with an apologetic expression. "Ms. Rose, we were contracted for payment upon conclusion of our performance. Our agency just notified us the payment has been canceled. I'm very sorry, but we need to leave." They began packing their instruments. The beautiful music that had woven through the evening stopped, leaving only harsh whispers and the clinking of glasses as more guests stood to leave, sensing disaster and not wanting to be associated with it. Within 30 minutes, the celebration had become a complete disaster. Caterers began packing up food mid-service, removing half-eaten plates from tables. The venue management sent in their financial person to demand immediate payment. Guests made increasingly urgent exits, offering hollow sympathies that rang false, mostly just wanting to escape the awkwardness and have something dramatic to talk about at their next social gathering. "So sorry, Rose. Hope everything works out. We should probably go. Early morning tomorrow. This is... wow. Just wow. Call me if you need anything." Nobody meant it. Nobody would call her. Nobody would help. They just wanted to leave, to distance themselves from the scandal, to rush home and text their friends about the most dramatic social disaster they'd ever witnessed. Rose stood in the center of the unraveling chaos, her emerald dress suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds, her expensive heels pinching her feet, her professional makeup starting to run as tears she'd been fighting finally broke through. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Each notification felt like a tiny electric shock. Her younger sister Claire approached cautiously, her date having already left. "Rose, what did you do? What did you do to him?" Rose couldn't answer. She had no answer. She'd thought her toast was clever, edgy, a way to establish her independence in front of everyone. She'd thought it would make her seem powerful, untouchable, in control. She'd never imagined this. The venue manager approached with a security guard. "Ms. Whitmore, I need to inform you that if payment isn't received within the next 15 minutes, we'll be forced to have you removed from the premises. Additionally, we'll be filing a civil suit for breach of contract and damages." Rose's father rushed back in, his face flushed from hurrying, his perfectly styled hair disheveled. "I'll cover it," he said to the venue manager, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Send me the invoice. I'll handle it." Then he turned to Rose, and she actually took a step back from the expression on his face. "We're leaving, now. Your mother's bringing the car around. We need to talk. We need to talk about what you've done and how we're going to fix this." "Daddy, I didn't know he—" "You didn't know?" His voice rose, loud enough that the few remaining guests turned to stare. "You didn't know that everything you had came from him? You didn't know that your entire life was funded by his work, his sacrifice? You stood up there and called him a loser, Rose, a loser. The man who gave you everything." Rose was crying openly now, mascara running in black tracks down her carefully contoured cheeks. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought I was being funny, being bold. I thought—" "You thought wrong," her father said flatly. "You thought very, very wrong. And now we all have to live with the consequences of your cruelty." Past midnight, Rose drove through the dark coastal roads toward the villa. Her parents followed in silence, headlights cutting through the fog. The ocean roared somewhere below the cliffs, once comforting, now menacing. The villa still stood like a monument to her former life, glass, stone, and wealth. But as soon as she stepped inside, she felt it. Emptiness. The echo of her heels replaced the warmth that used to fill the rooms. Furniture, gone. Art, gone. Rugs, tables, sculptures. Everything Henry had bought, gone. Only her belongings remained. Her dresses, her perfumes, her handbags, untouched. His side of the closet, bare. On her vanity sat the jewelry box. Every piece he'd ever given her was inside, neatly arranged with a note. "These were gifts. Keep them. Maybe they'll remind you what love looked like before you destroyed it. I took nothing that wasn't mine. You wanted independence? Now you have it. Build your own life. Good luck." H. And on the mirror, in his sharp handwriting, "Everything you valued came from me. Now it's back where it belongs." Her phone vibrated nonstop, messages flooding in. Her partner. "Investors are pulling out. They're suing." Her publicist. "You're trending as gold digger toast girl. We need a statement." Her landlord. "Vendors are filing liens." Her lawyer. "You have no claim. This will be expensive." Even her designer texted, "Sorry, I need my payment." Rose collapsed to the floor, surrounded by silence. Her father was downstairs shouting into his phone, her mother near tears. None of it mattered anymore. She finally saw the truth. Everything she'd called hers had never truly been hers. The love, the home, the safety. All of it had come from someone who believed in her, someone she'd humiliated for applause. Now the applause was gone, and so was he. Monday, 8:47 a.m. I sat alone at a rooftop cafe. The city below bathed in crisp autumn light. My cappuccino steamed beside a warm croissant, untouched. From up here, everything looked calm, orderly, like life was moving forward without hesitation. My phone sat on the table, blinking red. 47 missed calls. Dozens of texts, voicemails, and emails from Rose. A timeline of regret. Please call me. I didn't mean what I said. My lawyer says I have no legal recourse. I'm moving out. Please, Henry. I love you. Please, let's talk. Each message sounded the same, desperation without understanding. She apologized for what she lost, not for what she'd done. She still didn't grasp that her toast hadn't just embarrassed me. It revealed who she truly was. The waiter poured more coffee. Beautiful morning, he said. It is, I replied. I read her final message, sent minutes ago. The movers are here. Please, Henry, we can fix this. I blocked her number. The blinking light stopped. A peace returned. I finished my coffee, watched the skyline shimmer in gold. Down below, Rose was losing everything she thought she'd earned. I didn't feel hate or pity, just calm. Kindness isn't weakness. Patience isn't stupidity. And when you mock the hand that built your world, you shouldn't be shocked when it closes. She turned my love into a joke. I turned her applause into silence. And in that silence, I finally found myself again.